The live action How to Train Your Dragon changed 7 things from the original animated film. Most people think these were just creative updates, a fresh coat of paint for a new generation. But when you line them up side by side, a pattern emerges. Every single change points in one direction, and that direction tells us exactly what the live-action sequel is going to look like. Now, the 2025 live-action film was incredibly faithful to the original. We're talking near shot-for-shot recreation in many scenes. Director DeBlois came back to remake his own film. That almost never happens with these adaptations. But here's the thing. The movie is 30 minutes longer than the animated original, 30 minutes of extra material, and most fans just assumed those extra scenes were padding. But here's what nobody's talking about. Those additions aren't random, they're seeds, carefully planted seeds for the sequel that's already confirmed for June 2027. Let me show you what I mean. Clue number 1, Astrid wants to be chief. This is the biggest character change in the entire remake. In the original animated film, Astrid is a tough warrior, but we never learn what she actually wants for herself. The live-action version completely rewrites this. In a brand new scene, Astrid tells Hiccup directly that she intends to become chief of Berk one day. Think about that. In the animated trilogy, Hiccup becomes chief in the second film after Stoic dies. Astrid eventually becomes his partner, but she never wanted the position for herself. Now, the live-action version plants that ambition early. Why? Because in the live-action sequel, when Stoic dies and Hiccup is thrust into leadership, there's now a conflict that didn't exist before. Astrid wanted that role. How does she react when the person she's falling for takes the position she's been working toward her entire life? That's not an accident, that's set up. Clue number 2, Snotlout's father actually appears on screen. In the animated film, Snotlout is just a bully. He's arrogant, he's annoying, and that's about it. But the live-action version introduces his father, Spitelout, and you see something painful. Snotlout is desperately trying to impress a father who openly rejects him. His dad doesn't even want to be seen with him in public. Now, why does this matter for the sequel? Because in the animated second film, Snotlout becomes one of the key dragon riders. His arc is about proving himself, but without the father setup, it comes out of nowhere. The live-action version builds that foundation now. Snotlout's need for approval is no longer just a character quirk, it's a wound, and wounds need to be resolved. You probably missed this detail, but the writers didn't. Clue number 3, Berk's origin story changes everything. Here's where it gets really interesting. The animated film never explains where the people of Berk came from. They're just Vikings on an island, and the live-action version adds a completely new piece of mythology. Stoic explains that Berk is a coalition. The greatest dragon fighters from around the world came together. Warriors from the Far East, the Silk Road, the coasts of Africa, all united by one mission. Kill the dragons. This isn't just diversity casting, this is world building, because in the animated second film, Hiccup discovers that there's a much bigger world out there. He meets Drago Bludvist, a warlord who controls dragons through fear. He finds his long-lost mother living among wild dragons. The original animated version struggles to explain how these far-flung characters connect to tiny, isolated Berk, but the live-action version solves this problem before it even appears. If Berk was always a global coalition, then the wider world was always connected. That's a clue you can't ignore. Clue number 4, the village elder gets more screen time. This is subtle. In the animated film, the village elder barely appears. She shows up, says nothing, and vanishes. The live-action version expands her role significantly. She appears in the first 2 acts. She performs divination rituals. She predicts that the Vikings will find the dragon nest before winter, and she still never speaks a single word, not one line of dialogue. Now, in the animated second film, there are hints about Viking mysticism and the spiritual connection between humans and dragons. Valka, Hiccup's mother, has lived among dragons for 20 years. She understands them on an almost supernatural level. The Elder's expanded presence in the live-action remake feels like groundwork, a bridge between the physical Viking world and the more spiritual mystical elements that become central in the sequel. Clue number 5, Toothless looks different, and it matters. In the first animated film from 2010, Toothless had thin, reptilian pupils. He was sleek, aerodynamic, almost dangerous looking. By the third film, his design had softened. Bigger eyes, rounder features, more cat-like, more marketable. The live-action Toothless uses the softened design. His pupils are wide and round for most of the film. He looks adorable. But here's the detail that blew my mind. When Toothless is stressed or angry, his pupils thin to slits. The old design comes back. This isn't lazy character design. This is intentional, because in the second film, Toothless goes through his darkest moment in the entire franchise. He's mind-controlled by a bewildered beast and forced to do something terrible. The live-action version has already built the visual language for that transformation, wide, loving eyes that suddenly go cold and reptilian. The audience will feel that shift because they've been trained to see it. Clue number 6. The runtime tells you everything. The animated film is 98 minutes. The live-action version is 128 minutes. That's a full 30 minutes of extra material.
And most of it goes to two things: character relationships and world building.
Dean DeBlois said he wanted to let relationships run deeper. He wanted more room for the interplay between characters. You know what the animated second film is about at its core? It's about Hiccup's relationship with his father, and his relationship with a mother he never knew. Every extra minute in the live-action remake that deepens Hiccup and Stoic's bond is making the sequel more devastating, because we all know what happens to Stoic. Clue number 7. Dean DeBlois said it himself. This isn't speculation. In a Variety interview after the film's release, DeBlois said he preserved the iconic scenes as an homage to the fan base. But he also said something else. He said, it would allow them to play around a little bit elsewhere in the movie. He's telling us the blueprint. Keep the moments fans love, but use the extra space to plant seeds for what's coming. The sequel isn't going to be a shot-for-shot remake. It can't be. The animated second film introduces Valka, Drago, the Bewilder Beast, and Stoic's death. All of that needs the foundation that the live-action first film just built. Now, some fans argue that these changes are just standard modernization, that every remake adds diversity, expands characters, stretches the runtime, and honestly, that's a fair point. But here's the problem with that theory. Dean DeBlois isn't a hired director. He created this franchise. He wrote and directed the animated trilogy. He knows where every story thread leads. When he adds Astrid's ambition to be chief, he's not just making a cool moment. He's building a conflict for the exact scene where Hiccup becomes chief. When he gives Snotlout a painful relationship with his father, he's not just adding depth, he's setting up a redemption arc that pays off across 2 more films. These aren't generic updates, they're surgical. And the biggest proof? The sequel is already dated. June 11th, 2027, they wouldn't lock that date unless the creative groundwork was already in place. So here's what I think is really happening.
Dean DeBlois used this first live-action film as a Trojan horse. On the surface, it's a faithful remake. Fans are happy. The box office hits $636 million. Everyone trusts the franchise.
But underneath, he's been quietly rebuilding the foundation. Every change, every added scene, every expanded character moment, it all feeds into the sequel. The live-action second film won't just be a remake of the animated HTTYD 2, it's going to be something bigger. Astrid's ambition creates new conflict. Snotlout's father wound demands resolution. Berk's global origin connects to the wider world. The Elder's mysticism bridges to Valka's spiritual connection with dragons. And Toothless's visual design is preloaded for his darkest moment. This isn't a remake anymore. It's a reimagining, and we're only seeing the beginning. So here's my question for you. Which change from the live-action film do you think will have the biggest impact on the sequel?
Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your theories. And if you want more How to Train Your Dragon breakdowns, make sure you subscribe. Tomorrow we're covering the real reason Toothless left Hiccup at the end of the third film. And trust me, that one's going to change how you see the entire franchise.
I'll see you then.